Cips clips.
Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. People say it, so it's true. And if they diss me, I'll fucking sue. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. People say it, so it's true. And if they diss me, I'll fucking sue. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do.
Cips clips.
Alrighty, YouTube's another one of Kips Clips, and welcome to today's World Infowar News at 1 Live. The island of independence known as Estonia, where war is over as the World Infowar rages on. So we'll do a triple prong attack, look at the RTs, the BBCs, and primarily today the UK column. See if we can see the news speak and the other undercurrent of agendas coming through what is supposedly meant to be journalism and news, when it's nothing of the sort. So in the afternoon, one and all, if you appreciate the World Infowar News at 1 Live, make sure you use thumbs it up, share it with your friends, family and foes. Please help the channel and the show grow. I rely on you guys to do that because the cross-promotion of YouTube is gone. If you appreciate what I do and get any value from it, there's a Patreon and PayPal buttons down below. It's digital busking, everything's available and accessible free of charge. I hope to do such a good job and people will appreciate it that they'll consider using their spare change, not their life savings, on the Patreon and PayPal buttons down below. So in the afternoon, one and all, as I said, predominantly today I will be doing the UK. If you appreciate what I do and get any value from it, there's a Patreon and PayPal button. Shut up, you. So in the afternoon, as I said, it was going to be a triple prong attack. We'll be looking at Russia today, as well as the BBC, but primarily today going to have a wee look at the UK columns. Patrick in the afternoon. Patrick, how are you doing on this fine afternoon? It's turned out a lovely day again today. So first and foremost, let's go and have a wee look at the UK column. And Brian Gerrish has got his summer clothes on. Looks like a wee Sunday school boy in his Sunday best, isn't he?
It's me. Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 25th of July 2018, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, Mike Robinson. Well, as viewers can see today, I've taken precautions.
Well, indeed, and necessary precautions, because Britain is in meltdown. This is the front page of the Daily Mail today. It is so hot in Britain today, and it's going to get hotter. Apparently on Friday, it's going to be much hotter. And as a result, GP surgeries have shut down. Hospitals are in absolute crisis point. Apparently the nurses are struggling with dehydration because they can't get any water to drink. And patients are passing out and vomiting, apparently, according to reports. This is not even a red alert today, Brian. It's only an amber alert. And nonetheless, the entire country is shutting down. Apparently the railway lines are buckling under the heat, and all kinds of really horrible stuff going on, because this is the hottest that it's been for a very long time. And as I say, Friday, the Met Office saying could become the hottest ever July day.
Yes. But as we see the headline there, we've got the nice little contrast, because there's the fear factor in Britain in meltdown, and then there's the complete dross article of Vanilla Camilla.
Yes. Yes, let's move on quickly because well, good news, Brian. The government has published its white paper legislating for the withdrawal agreement between the United Kingdom and the European Union. So this is less than 2 weeks, they say, after the government confirmed its comprehensive plans for the UK's future relationship with the EU. It's published a new white paper. They're coming out thick and fast now, explaining how the UK's withdrawal agreement will be put into law. This is going to happen with the EU Withdrawal Agreement Bill, formerly known as the Withdrawal Agreement and Implementation Bill, and that's apparently going to legislate for the major elements of the withdrawal agreement, which is going to be reached with the EU, including issues such as the agreement.
Now, if you want to hear the details they go into, you can go to any anti-Brexit news outlet there and you'll hear the exact same rhetoric. That isn't the point I like to make with this, whether you agree with Brexit or not. The point I'm making is the UK column aren't independent. They're clearly a pro-Brexit news organisation which makes all their reporting on Brexit biased. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. Every little drop of their propaganda, reporting on Brexit is biased because they come from the fixed position that they are pro-Brexit. They're so pro-Brexit, they might even get Machiavellian on your arse and think the ends justifies the means, so they might actually justify to their little god bothering selves that lying to people justifies the ends.
On citizens' rights and the financial
Brexit.
settlement, the checkers. So this is the man behind
Brexit.
The international corporate, the setting really. On the first day of a major legal case on the limits of devolution, the UK's government's top law officer for Scotland argued that Hollywood's Brexit Community Bill cannot stand and must be struck down. Lord Keane, Advocate General for Scotland, told judges at the UK's highest court that legislation passed by MSPs in March following the failure to reach a negotiated settlement over post-Brexit was outside the competence of Scottish Parliament. So the bill impermissibly modifies Westminster's EU withdrawal bill, which transfers European law into British statute. So it's all immensely complicated here, but this is the key statement that we picked up on. The UK Parliament is sovereign and the Scottish Parliament is not. And what is all this really giving us? It's giving us an immensely complicated situation where nobody really seems to know what is actually happening. So if we just move on to the next bit, we can see in the press we've got UK to stockpile food in the event of a no-deal Brexit. So this has come out of the Scotsman. Is this an attempt from north of the border to stir up the fear factor and stir up more trouble?
No.
Please tell us how bad the F-35 is and how good the Armta tank is.
No, I don't think it is, because I think you're just about to come on to the other aspect of this.
Okay, well, we'll bring it up on.
Okay, so they are, in my opinion, rightly so, pointing out the mechanism of fear to control the public by the opposite side of the information war that these guys are in. What they're blind to, or what they fail to they know exactly what they're doing. They use the exact same tactic of fear to get you to think the opposite way.
Screen then. We've got this one, Matt Hancock, one of your favourites. Any responsible government needs to prepare for a range of outcomes, including the unlikely scenario of a no-deal Brexit. Since I've arrived in the department, I've asked this work to accelerate. This includes the chain of medical supplies, vaccines, medical devices, clinical consumables, blood products, and I've asked the department to work up options for stockpiling by industry. So this is absolute Project F.E.A.R. Without the EU, Britain is going to collapse and all of our medical systems are going to fall apart, according to Matt Hancock. And if we come back to Dominic Raab, he had this to say: if one party fails to honour its side of that overall bargain, this is the EU withdrawal, of course, there will be consequences for the deal as a whole, and that includes the financial settlement. It would be wrong to describe it as the government doing stockpiling. Oh, he's apparently not talking to Matt. It would be wrong to describe it as the government doing stockpiling, but added, we will look at this issue in the round to make sure that there is an adequate food supply. So the government's not sure if it's stockpiling or not, even though
Now they're using they're using fear themselves right here.
we've got a minister saying it's stockpiling, but we're going to starve if we come out of the EU, apparently.
Well, I'm going to die from lack of medical material.
Mike Robinson, you'll stay alive for a very long time, mate. You've got the fat reserves to last a good 15 years with no food. You're okay.
Yeah, so Project F.E.A.R, I think, is the key bit.
Well, let's stick with the Project F.E.A.R because, of course, Novichok 2, the sequel, moves on, and ITV News last night had
and
an interview with
Novichok.
Charlie Rowley, one of the two people that was apparently affected by the most recent, quote, Novichok event. So let's have a look and see what.
Worldwide, who has the largest dog in the fight to weaken the European Union? The Russian Federation. They want to weaken the European Union as a whole so they can negotiate better gas deals with the individual states rather than dealing with the bloc as a whole. It's business. The UK column are sitting here telling you pro-Brexit propaganda. You make your own mind up whether you think Brexit's a good thing or not. I'm I'm clear where I stand. I'm against the centralisation of power, full stop, and any sovereignty that was to get returned would be to the nation and then to the individual. These people aren't talking about that. They're talking about installing your sovereignty into a headquarters that they decide. They want to return sovereignty to the UK but not to Northern Ireland. And there's a lot of inconsistencies with these morons. They want to return sovereignty to the United Kingdom but not to Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and all the individual countries as a whole. They're hypocrites. They don't actually mean the bullshit that they talk about to use to stir you up to send you off to the voting.
He had to say. He said it was a 3x3 box that he found, about half an inch thick, which contained a glass bottle which you had to remove from a cellophane wrapper, put the pump dispenser on the bottle. And so what he has done here is set the scene whereby it wasn't just a bottle that was found on the ground in Salisbury. It was actually a sealed box, a new item, brand new, which he opened and discovered a bottle inside cellophane wrapper, which he had to open in order to take the bottle out, and then he had to put the pump dispenser on the bottle. And as a result, he said he ended up getting some on his hands, but he washed it off under the tap. Now, he said that his memory was affected by everything that's happened to him over the last few weeks, but he said he did have a memory, or does have a memory of his partner spraying it on her wrists and I guess rubbing them together. And then he said within 15 minutes, I believe Dawn said she felt she had a headache and asked me if I had any headache tablets. I had a look around the flat, and within that time she said she felt peculiar and needed to lie down in the bath, which at the time I thought was a bit strange. I went into the bathroom and found her in the bath, fully clothed, in a very ill state. But here's the thing that he said. He said, my hands were covered in the stuff. It was an oily substance with very little odor. They run tests on it. That's his language. They run tests on it, and I was in complete shock when they told me it was Novichok. So now we are, as this narrative proceeds, now we are expected to believe that he opened a sealed item, a box, removed a bottle from a sealed cellophane wrapper, put the pump dispenser on the bottle, and in the process of putting the pump dispenser on the bottle, he got some of this stuff on his hands. But when it got on his hands, it didn't smell of anything. It didn't
Like, you're just repeating the same shit, but 3 times now? 3 times,
have any
Mike.
odor, but it was supposed to be perfume, Brian, and the point of perfume is that it has some kind of smell.
Usually, yeah.
Right? So please, somebody explain to me why Dawn then took the bottle of non-smelling perfume and sprayed it on her wrists and rubbed her wrists together.
At no point does he say what happened first. She could have done it first, he could have done it second. At no point has that been clarified there.
When it didn't smell of anything.
Pay attention to what they're saying and what they're trying to inject into your head.
It's quite unbelievable.
Basically, like, they're running an interference for the Russian state. whatever you believe happened around this bullshit, I believe we've got to actually be in intelligence services to have a grasp of what's really going on here. Everything else is just best guessing. But you can clearly see the UK column's agenda here is to discredit the British state's version of events. I'm not saying the British state never tells lies, far from it. What I'm saying here is if there's an information war going on and there's on about this event, then the soldiers out there firing information bullets on behalf of both sides come clearly obvious. The BBC firing Infowar bullets for the British state. UK column firing information bullets for the Russian Federation.
I mean that in the true sense of that expression. Everything about it is fascinating. I think it's part of the course. And of course, this is being drifted through in wider media. I couldn't help but pick up this headline here from the Mail, Terror Police. So that's a UK column red line in there, but Terror Police boost MP security after she's accused of racism by activists for condemning the grooming of girls by Asian sex gangs. And of course, this is Sarah Champion. The headlines, the sub-headlines here says, Labour MP for Rotherham was accused by activists of industrial-scale racism. Sarah Champion highlighted common ethnic heritage of town sex scandal. She's been heavily criticised by racial justice charity Just Yorkshire that speaks on behalf of the local Pakistani community. It's interesting, Mike, that we've got in there activists.
It's interesting in there, the Mail Online literal fucking Nazi news. Go and read into the owners and editors and whatnot of the Mail, the Daily Mail, aka the Mail Online, and it's past, and you'll find bona fide fucking Nazis. And it's funny that they're propagating the Muslim grooming gangs, Asian grooming gangs stuff. And so is the UK column.
But we've also got the Terror Police who've come in. Now, apparently she's had some death threats. So if that is true, obviously that is not very nice. And Neil needs...
Now, this is a clever propaganda technique, whereas they're going, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with this story, but here's the story, have a read at it, and look at all the big bullet points that we're putting out. So you only get one side of the story.
To be dealt with, but it's amazing how we suddenly get Terror Police coming into this article. Well, what did she have to say? This is what she said. Britain has a problem with British Pakistani men raping and exploiting white girls.
And let's have a look at her exact... So what they're doing is propagating this woman's words from the Mail Online.
There, I said it. To which we can say, you're absolutely right, Sarah Champion, except you are not having a look at what's going on in the wider context. So she's had to partly apologise for that remark because, of course, the Pakistani and Asian community is saying, but it's not all of us. And she's now apologised and backtracked. So it would appear that Sarah Champion has at least had to think about what she's talking about, even though we know that Pakistani and Asian men have been involved in the rape.
Within the white community, a very small proportion of fucking idiots have a problem with brown or black people. In the Muslim community, fucking retarded attitudes and go out and do all sorts of bizarre shit. In the Muslim community, there seems to be a small proportion of them who have retarded attitudes and go out and do retarded shit. You have to address the retarded shit, not trying to divide the whole of Britain into fucking gangs pointing at each other and going, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. Any individual that does anything along those lines should be hung, drawn and quartered. Putting other stuff on top of that is political propaganda. I remember outside the Count Spunkula trial and speaking to the dudes after it, and I was like, What, do you need to qualify a fucking paedophile by what fucking religion or what colour his skin is? And there's a group of them that actually genuinely went, aye, of course you do. I'm like, wow, fucking we. So you don't think a paedophile is a paedophile is a paedophile is a paedophile and should be dealt with as a paedophile? You think you need to fucking, right, well, this one's a white one, this one's a brown one? Crazy, crazy, crazy.
And grooming of white girls. So let's have a look at things in a wider sense, and we'll come to the Mail. Ex-Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Carey, blames end of Diana's marriage and women priests for Church of England's failures over wicked, deluded paedophile Bishop Peter Hall. So now we're into the heart of the British establishment.
Now we're in, the UK column, rhyming, repeating, Mail Online propaganda yet again.
That establishment has been covering up the abuse of children, but now it all becomes a lot more murky than the treatment that and the investigation and the treatment for those Asian men who were grooming and abusing girls. So how does this develop? Well,
okay. Support of fascism. Right. The Daily Mail are fascists. The fucking Hitler supporting bastards. And now what you get is the UK column rhyming and repeating every bit of shite they are putting out. Now, again, propaganda doesn't have to be lies. You selectively go out there and select the stories that you want to propagate amongst the masses to create their image of what's happening in the nation or in the world as a whole. This is what's happening here. Because the counter-argument to pointing at this and calling it propaganda is, well, it's happened! It's happened! Of course it's happened! Religious scumfucks of all fucking denomination have been using that fucking bizarre mind-controlled fucking power which fucking mindless sheep give to them to fucking exploit people in many different ways for millennium. One of them being fucking little children. This is nothing new. It's nothing surprising. Using this shit as well as using all this stuff to create fear. Fear in the public to then politically motivate them to go and vote right wing. The Great Fear. Let's see if I can find this. The Great Fear. This was used in the French Revolution. This is what's getting used right now. Who knows? Maybe by the same fucking people. But the Great Fear was a general panic that took place between, there's the dates, at the start of the French Revolution. Right? It was a general panic which was propagated by the people who wanted to bring around the revolution. I give you the UK column. The UK column, the Truth or Industrial Complex, the Lords, the business interests of the British Empire, all the monetary interests which back the whole of the Truth or Industrial Complex, they are creating a great fear, a great panic. Everybody's a paedophile, everybody's a Satanist, everybody's a demon, every government worldwide is telling lies, everybody that's saying counter information to us are telling the truth. We're the God-fearing people, we are the good people, we are the ones to save you from the paedophiles and the Lucifers and the fucking every bad other shit they've projected into your mind. And it's as clear as once the penny drops, you can see their agenda clear as day. They're sitting there propagating fucking Nazi propaganda. Where the fuck is this? Support of fascism. Listen to this shit. Lord Rothmere was a friend of Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler and directed the Mail's editorial stance towards them in the early 1930s. Rothmere's 1933 leader Youth Triumphant praised the new Nazi regime's accomplishment and was subsequently used as propaganda by them. In it, Rothermere predicted that the minor misdeeds of individual Nazis would be submerged by its immense benefits. The new regime is already bestowing upon Germany. Journalist John Simpson, in a book on journalism, suggested that Rothermere was referring to the violence against Jews and communists rather than the detention of political prisoners. Rothermere and the Mail were also editorially sympathetic to Oswald Mosley and the British Union of Fascists. Right, so when you go and scratch beneath the surface of all these fucking morons, the UK column included, the UK column, the British Constitution Group, the British Constitution Association, go and look at the British Constitution Association's members and go and look at their members' links to support of fascism here in the UK. And what you'll find is that's where the money for these morons come from. This hasn't been a political movement. It's happened just as the internet was invented to wake us all up from the conspiracy. This has been more than 150 years in the making, since the inevitable decline of the British Empire. They had to form it into the British Commonwealth, and they had to move from colonialism to neo-colonialism, and these are the political. This is the political apparatus that they're using to maintain their old world power. Anyway, I digress.
Mr. Carey has been giving evidence. Carey resigned as honorary inquiry found this is failing England. Actually, everything rested on the shoulders of this specialist legal teams in order to make sure that abuse survivors, of which the church.
They're using the satanic, pedo, panic, fear porn to control you. They're sitting there rhyming and repeating the exact same fear the Mail Online is intended to inject into your head today. And the Mail Online's nothing but a bunch of Nazi fascist bastards.
Church of England is part of that state, of course. Push.
Do you know who, I don't know if it's still true to this day, but from the old mainstream media, which the Mail Online is part of, do you know who's the most successful, most propagated news worldwide online of the old guard media? The Mail Online. Then you see the mafia, I was talking about this last night, the alt-right, populist, nationalist, fascist bastards propaganda mafia work on YouTube, and you can see well, I don't know. I can see who's propagating these messages.
For the prosecution of those Asian. And Chris Leslie MP is Melanie Shaw's MP. Melanie worked for him at one point, and here he is, of course, glad handing her. But when she's in when she's in prison as an abuse survivor, suffering in truly horrible circumstances, Chris Leslie seems.
God, it's such a shame what the UK column has done to that woman. It's disgusting.
Not to lift a finger for her. If this upsets our viewers and listeners as much as it does us, here's his email.
Here's details to go and harass somebody.
Telephone number and address. Perhaps you might like to write to him, as we all.
Perhaps you might like to write to him. You know how many wee old angry men and women at home who are sitting gobbling this fucking propaganda up are now going to go and write to him in a pure angry, frenzied way. Like, paedophile fuckers, come! Not in a reasonable manner at all. Not by accident.
We say politely, in a reasonable way, but being quite forceful.
It's almost like Alex Jones. So go and put them up only in lawful and legal places, and then everybody plasters all their shite everywhere. Free
Has this
advertising,
man actually
thinking of
done
the
anything
resistance.
for Melanie Shaw and Willie? And we'll ask the same question of Nottingham Police Commissioner Paddy Tipping. Here he is, also glad handing Melanie Shaw. What has this man really done for Melanie? My opinion is not a lot. And this
What have yous really done for Melanie? My opinion is, fucked her up mentally good and proper to the extent that she's a raving fucking lunatic, and that you're giving the authorities every excuse to lock her up. She's sitting there fucking self-harming herself. She's went all for... If you're sitting in there cutting yourself up and all that, you're giving the authorities every fucking reason to section you under mental health and go, you're a danger to your fucking self, to try to chop your arms off. She's self-harming herself and stuff because of all the shite the UK column have pumped into your head.
Which is particularly sad because of
she's a victim of the UK column's F.E.A.R. porn.
Of course, Paddy Tipping was a...
pressures of social media. And how's he going to do that? How are they going to do that? Well, apparently, when he was speaking to the BBC Newsbeat, the sort of teenage news service this morning, he said there needs to be more use of apps in the National Health Service. So we've got to do loads more in that area. The use of technology and apps is the way to do it. So this is a quote from him. One of the things I've done in different parts of government is to make sure it's more tech savvy and digital. And then they could put more people into schools to deal with those mental health issues. Since the Second World War and the Battle of Britain has the RAF formed a squadron with another nation. So the joint squadron will provide the Qatari Air Force with valuable experience operating these aircraft and speed up their preparation for the first Typhoon to be delivered in 2022. The two countries...
UK and Qatari
sites such as this does not occur again. Now, what is all this? Well, basically, we've been giving more military equipment away. We were having a chat about that yesterday, but this one is about the provision of equipment to the Jordanians.
Basically exposing more of the scumbaggery of the British military-industrial complex. For what reason? Because they love Britain, or because they're working for the enemies of Britain?
In armed forces. In this example, we see the power of exposure, because the moment we know what's going on and ask the right questions, obviously Gavin had to come scuttling in to apologise for the fact that Parliament's been deceived. Well, don't worry too much, because we haven't given all of the Royal Navy away. The Mail again here, apologise for that, but...
Apologise for yet again propagating Nazi bullshit. I mean, literal supporters of, the friend of Adolf and Mussolini, newspaper and UK column are just sitting here parroting all their headlines. Here, look what the Mail Online's telling. It's just a coincidence. Yep, just a coincidence that the Mail Online are touching on all the things we want to touch on too. You know, this is how independent media works. The Mail Online says it, and then we say it too. Anyway, I'll pause that there. Have a quick look at the BBC's. No, I'll do RT first, I think. Going to be a dodgy stream.
There is still some fear. It's possible for groups of militants to go into houses and slaughter entire families.
The Islamic State terror group doubles the number of attacks in Iraq. A government security advisor says the state media there is trying to avoid panic by keeping quiet about the true level of violence.
The number of ISIL kidnappings has surged since May, and now the special forces do not have enough resources to hunt the militants down, as they are hiding out in remote mountainous areas.
The U.S. media and politicians lash out at the idea of a second summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, despite a recent poll suggesting most Americans are in favor of closer ties. And Facebook is mocked for banning ads featuring classic works by the Flemish artist Rubens due to their portrayal of nudity.
Any of you have a social media account? Yes. We have to take you away from the nudity paintings. We need to protect you against nudity, even if artistic in nature.
So RT, ISIS in Iraq, Trump and Putin in face back. And for some reason I can't seem to fucking fast forward it.
Series of terror attacks in the southwest of the country. The most serious was in the city of Sueda. One suicide bomber detonated his explosives in a marketplace there, and two others.
Let's take the cost of transporting.
Shit, I've just fast forward it, and I don't know if I can rewind. Let's see if I can. Let me go back there.
Over the U.S. intelligence agencies over whether or not Russia interfered in the election. Dan Coates put out.
Right here in D.C. in the nation's capital. And apparently John Bolton, National Security Advisor, will be working out all the logistics
Trump
the next time he's in Moscow. But the last meeting...
Politicking CNN journalist Jake Tapper says that Trump still does not believe the allegations against Russia.
After President Trump had published
and now they're contentious. Well, according to Facebook, it appears the
nudity
sparked concerns over Facebook's moderation system. Facebook's robotic sensors flag up hard to distinguish between pornography and artistic nudity, but when it comes to
pretty much the same fucking thing.
After a quick break. Civilian deaths, but as Caleb Maupin explains, there are ways around the policy.
Germany
now, at first
again.
glance, it actually
Germany.
looks like Washington is starting to distance itself from Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen.
Oh,
as
no, talking about who America are
it's
selling arms
illegal
to.
export arms
Let's
to
not
countries that
forget,
target
Russia's
civilians.
the second largest
well,
arms
not
manufacturer
anymore.
in the world.
One word changes.
Saudi Arabia says that Houthi rebels pose a threat to its borders.
Saudi Arabia.
Products including motorcycles and jeans.
Tariffs against the EU. Junker the drunker. You'll see them pointing at this sad old alcoholic fucking constantly. Right, so who has a dog in the fight to propagate this guy's a moron stuff worldwide? The enemies of the European Union.
Germany's domestic security service has raised the alarm over a growing right-wing extremist movement.
Germany
the country's
again?
interior ministry says there are more than 16,000 so-called citizens of the Reich in the country. The movement rejects the modern German state and prints its own passports.
In the court rule, which has killed multiple people.
Right. That was the right-wing people and morons in Germany getting propagated yet again by Russia today. Russia, propaganda-wise, wants to put Germany under the European Union and Germany under as much pressure as they possibly can, as they're signing lots of gas deals and stuff. So a weaker Germany, a weaker European Union allows Gazprom, Russia, to negotiate a better deal with them. It's a simple business strategy as that. Let's have what the BBCs are saying.
Police find evidence that dozens of children at a psychiatric hospital in Derbyshire were drugged before being sexually abused.
Woohoo!
They say the abuse took place
Tommy.
at Aston Hall in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, and that Kenneth Milner, the doctor in charge, would have been questioned under caution if he were still alive today.
A total of 77 crimes have been
recorded. Quick, look, there's a Muslim, he looks brown.
Physical and sexual abuse.
I bet you his name's Mohammed.
It was important for the police to investigate, despite knowing from the outset
he's
that
definitely a
Dr. Milner had
Mohammed. Look,
died
his
many
brown
years
face.
prior.
It's all his fault.
I was injected with this drug, which I now know was sodium amytal. I didn't know what it was then. It was a blacked out room with shutters, and they were closed, and it was dark.
We'll bring you the latest on the shocking findings from Derbyshire Police, also this lunchtime. Fears that the death toll in the Greek wildfire tragedy may rise to more than 100. It could be the deadliest disaster of its kind in post-war Europe. Here, the heat wave goes on with fresh concerns for the frail and the elderly. MPs say the system for excluding children from schools in England is like the Wild West. And a woman who says she's trapped in an unhappy marriage loses her Supreme Court appeal for a divorce.
And coming up on BBC News, a significant change to the laws on tackling in rugby union.
The BBC News at 1 has literally turned into tabloid bullshit fucking fodder. Derby kids getting raped by the state. Whitewash will happen. It's funny how these things only ever come out 30, 40, 50 years after the fact, and then nobody can consider these sort of things are actually happening right here, right now, and do anything about tackling these institutions abusing their so-called authority and power right here, right now. It's always funny how it's always when the people are dead and fucking buried that it all comes out in the wash. Heatwave. People getting suspended for school. And divorce and fucking rugby.
As the sports authorities
before being sexually abused. Police say the crimes were committed at Aston Hall Hospital in the 1950s, 60s and 70s.
Oh, so an institution for 30 old years was drugging and buggering little children. 30 fucking years. How many generations of victims must have been covered up?
Well, they say that Kenneth Milner, a psychiatrist there, would have been questioned under caution if he were still alive today. The inquiry spoke to more than 100 witnesses, many of whom said they were stripped and injected with a so-called truth serum, putting them into a zombie-like state, unable to move. Well, as they published their report this morning, this is what Derbyshire Police had to say.
A total of 77 crimes have been recorded, which include physical and sexual abuse. It was important for the police to investigate, despite knowing from the outset.
See if you've got a big fucking pile of cases on your desk and you're a police paedophile hunter, and you want to prioritise the cases that you're going to solve and get some you're going to resolve and get some justice for. And surely the ones that you would prioritise are the fucking current butt fuckers and paedophiles. Why is it always these people? Why is it always the historical cases that were told about on the BBC?
That Dr. Milner had died many years prior.
Well, Barbara O'Hare was one of the victims of abuse at Aston Hall, and she's been speaking to BBC.
And there were allegations that the man in charge...
People and children, and instead scores of patients suffer.
Ash-filled ruin, filled with blackened trees and crumbling walls. For many, only the sea view remains. So much of Matty is completely derelict now, full of houses that will have to be demolished before this town can rebuild. Many of its residents are discovering they no longer have a home to return to. Glikeria is one of them. An entire life.
Also, we have a very big problem to recognize.
Too. Our correspondent Danny Savage is in Knaresborough in North Yorkshire. Danny.
It's summertime and it's hot.
Let's not forget hotter again.
Keep inside and just come out.
Out in the countryside of North Yorkshire, this is what some of the Dales rivers look like. The upper reaches, like here in Littondale, have nothing in them. If you take a closer look at the riverbank here, you can see all this debris. It shows where the water got to in the winter and early spring. Where it's left is just how high the water got.
Oh my God! Breaking news! In the winter and spring, rivers are fuller than in dry summers. Breaking news! I would have never known that.
Compare that to now, and the difference is extraordinary. Surface water.
Mark, many thanks indeed.
Imran Khan, the PTI party, a senior figure from the PMLN party, which has been in power for the past 5 years.
Political bombings happening in Pakistan.
And I pray that God make happen whatever is good for my country.
The other leading under an hour's time, and we should have an idea.
Again, like, see right now at the moment, you've got this. Well, the Islamophobia shit, right, is predominantly aimed at Pakistani men, isn't it, right? That's where a lot of the venom is aimed at. Now, if you go and look at the history of Pakistan, which used to be old India before it was the British Raj, the hatred for the Brits that exists in Pakistan comes from the British Empire going over there and doing what the fuck they done with the East India Corporation, which was corporate fascism hundreds of years ago, and the Crown Corporation gave the East India Corp de facto governmental powers.
Yeah, but the result by the end of the night.
And we're still witnessing the fallout of the pull-out of the British Empire to this day, and still the continuation of the struggle for power between different entities. The British Empire, which would be the corporate entities of the British Empire, which ruled that part of the world to this day. And there you have your corporate fascism under the disguise of the truth.
Secunda, thank you. Secunda.
No. God, man.
Is being treated in hospital in Los Angeles after a suspected drug.
Celebrity death match. Somebody tried to
Her tens of millions of fans across the globe are wishing her well.
Examples of his argumentative, moody behaviour were flimsy. Well, today the Supreme Court has, with great reluctance and uneasy feelings, upheld the original judge's ruling, but it has
a minimum interest rate on their savings under plans being suggested today. The Financial Conduct Authority says it's concerned that savers who are loyal to the same bank or building society get poor returns on their money.
Better accounts that are available. So if you see for
pupils from
some native advertising for what bank is best to move your savings
schools
to.
in England has been likened to the Wild West in a critical
exclusion in year 10.
Exclusions?
And to curb exclusions, they've
the Wild West.
At Passmore, they say inclusion is in crisis, with schools judged only by academic standards.
Enough.
Kit Kat, copyright.
South once again. Look at those temperatures. 18 in London, 17 around Merseyside. A lot more comfortable there.
Freezing up in Scotland. So that was today's triple prong attack in the information war. Hopefully you enjoyed the World InfoWar News at 1. The island of independence known as Hostonia, as everybody out there is fighting for your loyalty, whether it be the UK column, the BBC or RT, or all their rhyming repeaters worldwide. All these coordinated propaganda campaigns, if you look at the messaging and what their overall agenda, the undercurrent of their messaging, you can see their original agenda. Whether a lot of the useful idiots who are out there rhyming and repeating that stuff realise it or not, they've been propagandised. They've been put into a fight or flight attitude in their head, and some people are running away, some people are fighting, and some people's fight is materialising with them taking to the YouTubes and going, "We need Brexit, we need this, Syria's good, Russia's bad, they're good and they're bad, and I'm going to tell you everything about the world." And it's affected a lot of us, I would imagine. And I just think it's better for us all to try and be independent and objective and stay away from the weapons of the information war. War is over if you want it. Read the small print. So hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Make sure you thumbs it up. Share it with friends and your families and even foes. Please help the show and the channel grow. There's a Patreon and PayPal buttons down below as well. It's digital busking. Everything's available and accessible free of charge. I hope to do such a good job that some people will consider using their spare change, not their life savings, on the Patreon and PayPal buttons down below. And a mega thanks to everybody that has. So thanks to everybody in the chat room. There's Society of the Spectre, Gary. How you doing, my man? Charlotte in the afternoon, guys and girls. Anon Mouse in the house as well. A Chinny18. How you doing, guys and girls? Thanks for joining. Avadoom. How you doing, Tom? Blazing Stars. Chinny18. Hold on. I'll see if I can read that, mate. Check some BitChute videos about SGT report being terminated. I observed it a while ago and I found that some of them claim that this is censorship. I will do, mate. I'm going to stab in the dark and say that they were part of the Truther Industrial Complex and that's why YouTube kicked them off, because they were a clear propaganda channel rather than an independent journalist. But That's just the pattern I'm seeing with the people that are getting kicked off or having problems, like Itchy Richie to the rest of them. Blazing and on Mouse in the house. Afternoon, guys and girls, and rebel against the puppet show. And Patrick Little was in earlier on as well. So thanks for joining, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll be back again tomorrow, unless it's a lovely day and I get out on my bike or something. And so stay tuned tomorrow for another World InfoWar News at 1. Alrighty, YouTubes. Catch you.
Clips, clips. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. People say it, so it's true. And if they diss me, I'll fucking sue. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. People say it, so it's true. And if they diss me, I'll fucking sue. Man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Clips, clips.